ability to deep dive into research and question everything comes to her with ease. Her innate curiosity has also made her an extremely conscious and mindful consumer. She hopes many others will follow suit. Rest assured, as long as Megha is at the helm of Juicy Chemistry as COO and co-founder, no question will remain unanswered. And to add to that, she's an LWL member, which is very meaningful for us. So thank you so much for taking the time. If we could give her a round of applause, please.
Hi guys, good afternoon. This is my first time doing a presentation while talking, so please forgive me if there are any bloopers. Hoping to make it a very interesting session for all of you all present here. I'm going to be talking about creating the perfect product, and I would like to do a little bit of a backstory before I get into building the perfect product. It's a long journey. We've been building Juicy Chemistry for the last 10 years. So I'm just going to put out a few slides for you all to see, and then we can talk about it. Doesn't work? Okay. So, like I was already introduced, I've got an undergraduate degree in criminology and criminal justice system, and then I did my post-graduation in journalism and mass communication. The intention was always to lean towards academics and work in that area. I've done a couple of research papers for the Cambridge and worked on criminology for a few years before I jumped into different entrepreneur, before exploring my entrepreneurial side. So that's a little bit about me. I left home when I was 16. I come from a very protected environment. I've got extremely supportive parents. I grew up in a house with very strong parents who wanted to make sure there was absolutely no difference between my brother and me, and I was raised to be independent from a very young age. I left home when I was 16. I went through some trauma in school, and I decided Bombay was not it for me. I'm from Bombay. I said, it's not the place for me. I need to leave Bombay. And I came across this school called Chinmaya International Residential School. It's nestled in the mountains in Coimbatore, about an hour away from the city. And I had not even heard about the city Coimbatore back then. It was a very new zone for me. And then it happened over dinner, and my parents said, okay, fine, if you want to go, we're going to let you go. And back then, International Baccalaureate had just come into India. It was a couple of years old, and that's how I got into the school. And that was the change, the turning point in my life. Just leaving home at that young an age, knowing that I can make such an important decision. And I had the backbone, the support to do it with all honesty. I went there, completed my International Baccalaureate, and then I didn't want to move back to Bombay. I was still convinced I can't stay in Bombay. And I went to Australia. I met my better half in school. We've been together for the last 24 years. And from there, we both went to Australia. He did his business management, and I did my criminology and journalism. While there as well, I was suffering from PCOD. I found out when I was about 17 that I have PCOS, and, I suffered from skin issues for the longest period of time. Every time, I got my paycheck from the gas station while working, I would go to one of the treatment centers in Australia, and it was ridiculously expensive being a student going for these treatments. But I would just want to try and fix my skin without knowing that, it cannot be fixed with just topical treatments. But back then, who knew, right? You're 17, 18, you want to look perfect. You don't want your skin to be always filled with pus-filled acne. And yeah. So post that, I came back to India. And back in India, of course, there was further struggle because everybody had a judgment on how your skin looks. How you go for social events, and everybody had an opinion on what you can do with your skin. And it became traumatizing, I went to every possible doormat. My mother has taken me to every possible doormat in the city. I've gone for treatments, done all of it, right? It was temporary solution. And it was fixing it. I said, okay, skin looks good, no issues, this is fine. Post that, for 4 years I was working. I worked in Pune. I was working on my research papers. And then 2009, Pritesh and I decided to get married. And I had to move to Coimbatore. We got married amidst financial distress. There was a lot of financial stress back in Pritesh's business. And they were into the petroleum business. They were into, manufacturing of automobile fluids and grease for the larger industry giants. And there was a lot of disruption because it was a very unorganized sector. And I had to say goodbye to my treatments. I had to say goodbye to a lot of the things that I was used to, because honestly, it became a struggle to put bread on the table. And going from that, I started my first journey of starting clothing business, because that was something my mother was very passionate about. I'd never worn commercial clothes. She'd always customized my fits, my tailored clothing. So she supported me, and that's how I started the business. And I was bringing food to the table while Pritesh was putting out the fire as far as the business was concerned. All throughout, it became quite a stressful time, trying to balance what your skin, your body requires vis-a-vis, what you can actually afford. And back by 2014, everything had started settling in, but we had to shut down the family business. And the clothing business was clearly not enough. And after all of this, I said, let me just try something simple, because I cannot be going for exhibitions and events with troubled skin. And we started with experimenting in our kitchen with literally 5,000 rupees in a 10 by 10 kitchen. That's how we started. The story behind this was, I was looking at products in the mall, and I saw something looking very fancy. It had these beautiful pictures of neem leaves, and it had strawberry, and it had just, I thought, let me just try this. I mean, it's natural, it can't be bad, right? And Pritesh just, flipped the product, because we do our chores together. He just flipped the product, and he said, this is nothing close to what they're promising it to be, right? And I said, what do you mean? How can this not be right? It's a product on a commercial shelf. And the product had everything but those ingredients, right? It had like a percentage of that ingredient, but everything was base QS. There was parabens, there was fragrances, there was all sorts of things that you'd not think would be present in a natural product, right? And once we understood that, we started picking up the calls, speaking to a few family members. We started talking to friends. I said, I use XYZ natural brand. I use this Ayurvedic brand. And we said, okay, but can you flip the label and tell us what is in that? Because we couldn't obviously go and buy all these products. And they started sending us screenshots of their products. And everything looked same. All the products had a very similar ingredient breakdown, right? It was base QS. It had 1 or 2% of the extracts that was being shown in the front of the label. Balance was aqua and all the other emulsifiers, stabilizers, preservation, and so on. And it became like a eureka moment. Like, what is this? How do we create a product that's absolutely true and natural? And that's when Pritesh, coming from his automobile background, said, okay, let's eliminate water and see what happens. So we launched India's first anhydrous skincare brand, where we eliminated water completely from our formulations. So it became like your Dadima's mask without the water, right? I mean, why would you need a ready-to-use mask that's available on the shelf, which is 70% water with preservation, emulsifiers, and all of that, when we can give you like the pure 100% potent mix, and you just have to do is add water, rose water, aloe gel, whatever you feel like activating it with. But didn't that make sense? And once we hit that, we said, okay, let's try this. And then we said, why are moisturizers laden with water? And the same thing happened with moisturizers. So we said, why don't we do facial oils? It was a very new concept back then, 10 years back. Nobody thought about applying oils on their face, because, when you talk about oil, people relate it to cooking oil. People relate it to coconut oil. People relate it to castor. But then we discovered a world of oils that are great for your skin, that are dry oils, that are non-sticky, great for all season, great for all skin type. And once we launched it, with my clothing business, we started going to, that's the slide, So once we understood that greenwashing was so rampant, we had an uphill task. We had to take these products, and everywhere we went, the question was, why does it feel so different? You know, I'm not used to this texture. I'm not used to mixing my powders. And then because the start of the journey was where we was personally standing at farmers markets week on week, there was a lot of personal interaction. You know, consumers started understanding and they started asking us the right questions. And we said, isn't it natural to feel a little unnatural when you switch to something organic? If it's meant to feel exactly the way your conventional product is concerned, what's the difference? And it was such a basic concept, right? But people could not come to terms with it, you know, that, okay, I'll have to make an adjustment. And then we came up with an analogy trying to explain the audience that just imagine you want to lose weight, you go to a gym for a day and then you say, it's not made any difference. You go for a week and you say, it's not made any difference. It is a consistent journey. Nothing can be overnight. Nothing can be giving you miraculous results within a week. And if that kind of a product existed, none of us would need dermats, none of us would need nutritionists, none of us would need any sort of treatment, right? If there was a magical product that existed. So once we started interacting with the audience, we realized there was such a huge gap in understanding, and the laws in the country were so irregular. There was nothing that was, you know, there was no stopping to brands calling themselves Ayurvedic, natural, herbal, and so on, right? I mean, right now we are seeing, of course, the entire Patanjali fiasco that's happening as well, because brands actually can get away doing a lot of this because there are no regulations. And then we got questioned, how are you different? I mean, XYZ brand is also claiming to be natural, XYZ brand is also claiming to be organic. That's when our EcoCert journey started. You know, we started questioning why. Sorry, I already talked about that. Just give me a second. Yeah. So everything we need for healthy and beautiful skin is available from nature's lab, and to believe that labs can produce better ingredients than Mother Nature is just a fad, right? I mean, that's something we started asking. And then the entire organic equation came into play, right? When you call yourself organic, you actually need to back it up with certain certifications. But again, there's no regulation around that. Anybody can call themselves organic, right? By just using certain ingredients, or say made with EcoCert certified ingredients. So what was your differentiator? The reason I'm going into this story is to talk about, when you talk about creating a product, first, what is the impact that your product is meant to make? What is the end result that the product is going to give? And how are you going to differentiate that product in a cluttered market? Because today, yes, there are powerhouses that have a lot of marketing money to make even a mediocre product sound phenomenal. If you have a truly, genuinely good product, how are you going to make it stand apart, right? I mean, these are the important questions before you even get into creating a product. You first need to ask yourself, is there a need for this in the market? If there's a need, what am I going to do to make it stand out? So these are the questions we asked, and then we went down the EcoCert route because we wanted to be, when you call it an organic product, I cannot package it in plastic, I cannot package it in a bubble-wrapped product, you know. And I mean, with organic comes a lot of responsibility. You want to be sustainable, you want to do right by the farmers, you want to do right by people associated with you. So the whole idea was, going down the EcoCert route was to at least get the right kind of knowledge imparted to your audience, you know, by telling them that, hey, a third party has audited this product for you, and it's not just us claiming that this product is clean, this product is organic. It's audited, and not just by an Indian agency where, you know, sometimes you go like, हाँ, यहाँ पे तो सब चल जाता है. It's an international standard agency which is from Europe. It's the world's largest cosmetic certification agency, EcoCert, and that's what we selected to do for Juicy Chemistry. This was back in 2017 when nobody had even heard about certifications in organic and so on. But this became our differentiator. I mean, today when you talk about organic, we definitely come on the top of the list for most people, you know. Okay, if it's Juicy Chemistry, yeah, they are organic, you know, it's trustworthy and so on. So this is what we did. I'm going to take a moment to stop here and ask if you guys have any questions, anything that you all want to ask me. Please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sakina.
Hi, Sakina.
My business is nothing to do with the kind of work you do, but nonetheless, the mediating point being that the differentiating factor that you're talking about, when you went the eco-cert route, right, that is a very technical differentiator that you're talking about. So if you went that route, it must have taken you quite a bit to even educate your customer into why this eco-certification even made sense, or why should one even consider it. Right? So similarly in my business, if I'm offering my product, there are 500 different people also offering a similar product. So if I want to create a differentiation based on a technicality, as how you mentioned, how does one educate a customer as well at the same time to make sense out of what you're trying to do? Because you are already doing it, so you know the value of what you're doing. But at the end of the day, the customer is somebody who has to understand that value to buy your product, right?
That's actually an excellent question. You know, I think I've put a story about it over here. So I'll tell you a little incident, and I think I was talking to Anushka while we were discussing this. The technical point, while, you know, in your mind you say, oh wow, you know, I got an eco-cert for 100 products. We are India's largest eco-cert certified skincare brand. The issue that we see is, like you said, educating the consumer. It's become very expensive. And the initial days, while we were building a community, which was the first step for Juicy Chemistry. I mean, Juicy Chemistry was one of those brands that didn't start from a concept stage, go to a VC, get a fund, and then, you know, build the brand, right? We started literally from scratch, and we built a profitable business for almost 7 years before we went down that route of funding as well. When you're in a smaller cohort, it became very easy to explain, right? When it's just a group of audience here, I can tell you about the difference. I can explain to you through slides that, hey, flip your product in your vanity, go do this exercise at home and send me screenshots and you'll see what you're applying and why EcoCert is relevant. The minute it comes to a larger audience, the question became, is this enough? Will your audience actually resonate with what organic means? And in today's clutter, I don't think it's even a big differentiator. I'll be very honest with you. The difference is that because we are now inching towards 10 years into the business, there's a lot of goodwill around the company, there's a lot of trust around the company, is why people associate, okay, if it's Juicy Chemistry, it's organic, it's trustworthy. So that goodwill you'll have to build over a period of time if it's a technical differentiation, right? I mean, and for us, it was not about just playing on the technicality of organic. Yes, it's organic, but what are you going to do if the product is not efficacious? Can organic be efficacious? So the goal over here, when we created a Juicy Chemistry product, I mean, it was so funny. We in fact met with a marketer recently, and he said, "आप लोगों में अक्कल नहीं है, आपने सब अच्छा एक product में डाल दिया है." You know, I mean, you've put everything good in one product. Sorry, I'm talking in Hindi because I'm assuming everybody's from Bombay. So, and I said, "What's wrong in that?" He's like, "This is not how a product is developed." So because the way we develop product was for my skin issues, from my kitchen, if I'm talking about a anti-scarring facial oil, right? The base of the product is rosehip seed oil because rosehip is a great non-sticky dry oil. I'm going a little technical. I've added a helichrysum facial essential oil because it's an anti-scarring, right? It actually is an anti-scarring facial oil. It takes care of your pigmentation. It reduces scarring. Along with that, to make it smell pleasant, I've added sandalwood oil, which is very expensive. I've added a little jasmine because even jasmine has the same impact of reducing scarring. So everything good. Well, while most brands use a percentage, like 1%, 2% of these extracts, we're using 80, 90%, right? So my COGS are really high. I'm not diluting it with a synthetic capryl triglyceride or something like that and then adding these base ingredients, right? So in that factor, for me, it was, yes, while we are organic, we are also efficacious. Like if you are to use this product, we assure you, you're going to get this difference. That became a differentiator. So you'll have to find that blend of whether that technical differentiation is actually relevant to your audience. Along with that, what is the extra icing on cake? You know, what is the cherry on top of the cake? That will actually hit that nail for the consumer. That is very important to find. So when we went organic, we also got clinical studies done. Like I'm talking about a pure hair growth oil. How do I prove that this actually works? Or I'm saying my lip balm actually reduces pigmentation, but why will people believe it? So I have done an in vivo clinical testing on real people over a period of 40 days, 58 days to show that this actually works. And that combined with organic, clinically proven and organic, that became the X factor in today's day and age, right? That's the differentiation over here. So when we started with a smaller audience, being organic was enough. It was like, oh wow, you know, the community was like, oh wow, you know, from Coimbatore, from Chennai, everybody was very impressed because, I mean, there is already more awareness about these kind of products back in, you know, in the South where they use clean ingredients. They are all about, you know, simplified skincare routines. They don't believe in this whole 10-step routine. So for us, it became much easier to speak to them. But when we started addressing a larger cohort, when it came to selling our product to people in Delhi, people in Bombay, people in Kolkata, how do I add an extra factor, right? And that's the differentiation that you'll have to find. I hope I answered your question. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a couple of questions, not just about the perfect product, but about how do you price it? How do you brand it? So your product is called Juicy Chemistry. Chemistry to me doesn't really resonate with organic, whereas Forest Essentials could resonate with organic, but that's not really the case. You've not really put out organic probably on your thing. Also creating this perfect product and then pricing it differently, has that really helped? Having a name that doesn't really resonate with organic, how does that kind of help?
So, like I said, you know, with Juicy Chemistry, it was never planned to be the brand it is today, right? I mean, we were just two young people in our kitchen experimenting. And, you know, funnily, the name came about because in the night, and we used to work in the night, right? Because daytime I had my clothing business and it was post 8 o'clock. We said, let's try and experiment something. And Pritesh said, you know, I'm going to try an orange soap. You know, how those market beautiful glycerine, orange, sunshine color soaps. I'm going to make that. But I'm going to make it with pure orange juice. And I said, really? He's like, yeah, that's how instead of water, we're going to give the actual nutrients of an orange juice in the soap. And soaps are very, very dear to me. They're like the one product I can't do without right now. So he sat to make it, and you know, you do a traditional cold process soap. There's like an alkali and, you know, the mixing of fat and acid reaction that you do. And actually it became a big brown mess. And this is at about 2 in the morning, and Pritesh is like, oh my God, look at the chemistry. Look at what has happened, right? I mean, because you're reading on how to do these reactions, and then suddenly I'm half asleep, and he's like, hey, what do you think of Juicy Chemistry? And I said, what is Juicy Chemistry? He said, what do you think of the name Juicy Chemistry? And I said, but let's think over it. And then next day we started calling up, and everybody said, yeah, you know, it's such a refreshing, different name from what is already in the market, right? There's like your Kama Ayurveda, there's Forest Essential, there's Himalaya, and then there's Biotique, and all of them talking about Ayurveda and so on. Let's do something different, right? And we said, okay, done. I mean, you know, that's what I mean. Today, the way marketing happens and today the way brands come into play is, what is the search volume on a particular product? Let's make this product. How do you market it? We didn't do any of that, right? For me, the first website happened 2 years after I even launched the product. It was a purely Facebook and WhatsApp brand. I mean, if you see the recent Facebook documentary as well, I think the president of Facebook has actually spoken about Juicy Chemistry, of a case study, and how Juicy Chemistry actually got built as a WhatsApp and a Facebook brand, right? I mean, so we built completely differently. And in hindsight, you would be like, okay, you know, we should have gone for some of those traditional names. But then we started backing chemistry with, you know, how you talk about physical chemistry, right? You need that bond to happen. So how the ingredients marry together. The physical and nutrient profile of the ingredient is extremely important. So we started building content around that. We started talking about the chemistry of ingredients coming together. We started talking about, so we started making it work for us. And the original tagline was simplified skincare. Then we had our angel come in and said, no, but why skincare? It doesn't, because you have hair care as well, and you have a lot of other categories as well. So we changed it to organic by nature, right? So it's organic just by nature, right? So that's how we came up with the tagline. But that's how the name came. And sorry, your second question was about pricing. So I'll be very honest, even pricing, I didn't give it any thought. For us, it was, it's costing us so much. Should we try selling it for this much and see if we're getting that money, right? Because, I mean, this is literally how we went, right? That's me, you know, making some drawings, and this was our original packaging. So interestingly, the logo and everything was designed by an LWL member itself, Bhavika. She's her brother, and we went to school together in Chinmaya, and that's how she did it. Complimentary. She did it as a friend, and we are very grateful to her for doing it for us. And that's how the logo actually came into sync. And this was the original packaging. Everything was in plastic because it was cheaper. You know, we stood at these markets and we would talk to the consumers, and that's how we did. So the pricing worked, you know, and surprisingly, the only thing I think we priced ridiculously was our soaps. They were 850 rupees a bar of soap, and they sold really well back then. In a smaller cohort again, they sold really well. Because unlike the palm oil laden, base QS laden, our soaps were made with pure butters, and we actually infused fresh juices in it, which nobody was doing back then. And that became a super nutrient bar of soap which did not dry out your skin, right? You have these ads where people talk about soap acha nahi, but like, we keep talking about how the formulation is very important when it comes to using a product on your skin. So I think our soaps were a little ridiculously priced at that, at that point in time at 850. But beyond that, today I feel we are very affordable. But surprisingly, with the kind of clutter that we are seeing in the market and the kind of price points brands are offering, we are now being called very premium and we are called expensive. We wanted to be somewhere in that a little bit premium, where we wanted the right audience to select it, because we knew it will be a very uphill task explaining this kind of jargon to somebody who may not find value in the pricing of the product, right? I mean, and for us, the original consumer was also 30 plus. It was not the younger generation. It wasn't the 14, 15-year-olds, 18-year-olds today, which is the Gen Z that is actually investing in these products. That was never our target audience, because I personally felt skincare is more important and relevant after you're 30. I mean, today I see the kind of acids and the kind of things people are using on their skin, and I worry, you know, I feel like I don't know what will happen when they're 40, because what are they going to do? I don't know. If at 20 they feel that their skin needs all these products, right? Retinoids and so on. So we never targeted that audience. And for us, the audience started 30 plus. So our prices were a little bit on those, you know, in that realm of things. But I think in hindsight, the kind of quality we present, I think we should have been priced much higher, unfortunately. That's my opinion. But then brands with a much higher price point don't necessarily scale in a country like ours. It's not a price, India is a very price sensitive market. So I mean, that's something we have to definitely keep in mind. So yeah, it's going on its own. So yeah, we started there, and in 2019 we got our angel round. It was a known acquaintance who wanted to invest in the company, and we took that money to build some capex, because everything at Juicy Chemistry is more handmade, right? It's more involved with human touch. We don't necessarily have machinery. Like even if you came to our unit right now, there are very few machines, because we don't use the standard ingredients. We don't use the standard formats of formulation. Our formulations are heavily driven with infusions and, you know, cold pressed juices and so on. So we took some of that money and did the capex. And in 2020, we actually scaled exponentially. We got a lot of interest from VCs. And in 2021, then we took our first Series A, and that's the journey in the last, and then the last 3 years have definitely been tough. And this is where your product market fit story comes into play. To be very honest, we've had failures in products, you know, like we created the perfect shampoo that we thought people will understand, because when it's an organic shampoo, any natural organic shampoo, I don't know, how many of you all actually use a natural shampoo? Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't foam much, but tell me how many washes it took to actually adapt from a commercial shampoo to a conventional shampoo? Or did you like feel like, okay, yeah, this is normal? Yeah, right? You'll suffer, right? You won't believe it. Even if you take my product today, on the back, it actually talks about the transition process. When you purchase a shampoo from my website, you'll get an email that, hey, there's a transition involved. Please be sure of your choice, purchase, okay? And on our social, on our stories, we talk about it all the time, right? And yet, you'll have the consumer go like, so what do I use this shampoo? I mean, the product was perfect when it was a smaller cohort because we were able to talk to them, we were able to explain to them, and they said, yeah, I mean, it'll take a few washes, but we get used to it, right? Because we made the original onion shampoo bar today. Unfortunately, there are a lot of bigger brands that have taken the cake over there, but we started the original onion shampoo bar where my staff would cry. We were like, nahi, fresh onion juice ka shampoo banate hai. We made a bar shampoo with fresh cold pressed onion juice. It was certified organic, but it took 7 to 8 washes before it started performing, and nobody wanted to wait. So with the smaller cohort, worked really well. With the larger cohort, that was the first product that actually started getting us a maximum negative reviews. And it became a question like, then the question started like, how are you going to scale this product? If this much you have to talk to the consumer's attention span today is very poor. How is the consumer going to read so much? There's a lot of jargon involved. And the shampoos that you are probably using also still have Sidnets, okay? They have acceptable natural surfactants like cocoa glucoside, decyl glucoside, and so on. The ones that we are talking about are pure, like a Dr. Bronner's kind of a shampoo, which is cold press, hot press soaps and shampoos, right? They don't have any of these synthetics or any additives. It's a pure bar of soap. So it takes that 7 to 8 washes no matter what you do, right? Even if you're using a natural shampoo, like somebody will say, I'm using a Forest Essential, will it still have a transition? Yes, because it's that much purer. But, and along with that, there was, okay, but if you clarify your scalp with an ACV rinse, the transition will become faster, right? So with a smaller cohort, this worked beautifully. And we thought, oh, wow, you know, everybody's now talking about onion, we are going to scale. We're going to really have a good chance to, you know, make this big. And then it was literally like a slap in our face. How? How are you going to talk to your audience so much? You're not even doing these kind of farmers market shows, and you're not, you know, constantly in touch with the consumer. Back in the day, I was the customer service. I was the one managing the IGDM. I was the one putting out content. Once you have the teams, they're not necessarily going to do exactly what you do, right? I mean, how much are you going to monitor? So like, nahi ho payega. And we had to take a decision to shut that product. Like a very close product to our heart, and we had to shut that product. And the people who were using it, right? It was a very small cohort. We had like 5,000-7,000 people who were regular consumers of it. We want it. We'll buy 6 bars. You please make it. For the longest time, we started doing that until, you know, then we started getting thrown with these questions that, how is this product justified? You need to have upwards of this much units of sale. You will need to do this. So the brand started having to change. So as passionate as we are about our product, as much as we love what we've created, if we're not open to change, it can be the death of the brand as well. And for the longest time, for me, that was the biggest struggle, okay? I mean, I would literally dread going into we have the kindest VCs, we have the best board, but I used to dread going in because, you know, the question would always be like, why isn't this scaling? Why isn't that happening? And I'm like, but consumer nahi samajh raha hai, you know, and there's so much clutter in the market. How do you rise above that? You need a lot of marketing money to rise above that, right? To talk about what you're doing differently. Is it better to just adapt to what is already the norm, what the consumer is already comfortable using, but make it a little better by making it organic? Or you stick to your guns and say no? Now, if you're a VC-funded company, that's not necessarily a choice that you have, right? You'll have to look for the interest of everybody around you. You'll have to, because you've taken a liability at the end of the day. You'll have to do right by people. So at that time, the delusion that this is a perfect product or, you know, मैंने बहुत मेहनत की है इसके पीछे, you'll have to probably bring about those changes and try to think, how can I do right by both my consumer and people who invested in me? So that's where your perfect product fit can actually go out of the window. Now, I'll give you another example where in COVID time, everybody started asking us, when is Juicy launching makeup? And I said, bhai, itne brands, why would you want a Juicy makeup company? He said, no, we don't trust any brand. We want organic makeup. Again, uphill task, makeup, and that to make it organic. It's a very big task. We started talking to people. We didn't have the bandwidth or the understanding of what goes in. I am 2 left feet when it comes to makeup. You know, I'm like literally saying feet because I don't know anything about makeup. I've never applied it. It took me a lot of learning. And we started researching and we realized, okay, if we have to do this, we'll probably have to go to Italy and get this done, because that's the only place. It's Europe, and they'll do organic properly. They'll follow the rules, regulations, everything. And we managed to launch India's first certified organic makeup line. We were very upfront from day one. It's not transfer proof, because we don't want your lips to get damaged. We are giving you a foundation that is certified organic, but it's not water resistant. You'll have to dab. If you sweat, you dab, but it won't do any harm. Like, you can apply Bombay Humidity, I'm applying it, no issues. We started creating products, but we started being very upfront with what you can expect from the product, right? Today, we have India's first certified organic compact, we have certified organic foundation, hair mascaras for kids, everything that is certified organic. Lipsticks that are EcoCert natural, because some pigments you'll have to use. We didn't want to use carmine, which is beetle's blood. We didn't want to use that in lipstick as a pigment. So we used synthetic, and we were upfront about it. But when this also happened, we were working with the Germans on lip crayons, and they kept saying, no, but we make this standard formulation. I said, if you want to work with me, I will not allow this formulation. They said, we will not do so many iterations. I said, no, you'll have to do it. We went to their factory, we pleaded with them, and today they became a cult favorite within 6 months. Okay, like the lip crayons, they became like a runaway hit, right? People went crazy. We had like celebrities talking about it, we had influencers talking about it, no payments done, right? It was not paid, nothing. Everything was organic. Yeah. So that's when you found the product fit. You'll need to get that virality, you'll need to get that cult favorite status. Like, it's my orange lip balm. We were making sweet orange lip balm. We were selling about 400 units a month, okay? The minute I updated that formula to blood orange with rosehip, we started selling upwards of 10,000 units a month. It just went viral on its own, because people started seeing results, people started understanding that, this is what it was, right? For us, the product promise was organic, ingredient source, it had to be premium, the quality had to be tested, which is your third-party auditing, it had to be sustainably packed, and then the consumer need. So all of these things came together now for every product that we develop. Earlier, we were thinking what I would like, what smells I prefer. Today, the entire dynamics changed to what actually will work in the market. And once we started working on this, we started seeing like the basic products also starting to scale. So that's when you'll understand the perfect product. When you talk about a perfect product with a smaller audience versus a bigger audience, it's very different. When you talk about how you want the product to work, with how much education you want it to work, the more effort it takes to sell, trust me, it's a very difficult product. You don't want it. It'll never scale. Because there'll always be somebody who will rain over your parade. So don't go down that route. So, yeah, and this is, like I spoke about color chemistry and how the crayons became a huge hit. So yeah, and that's the hair mascara that I launched specially for my daughter, because she was through the process, she was with us, and she said, what about me? What are you making for me? And that's how we launched the hair colors for the kids. But again, opening up the floor for questions, please let me know.
Hi, so I wanted to ask, at what point did you realize that you could kind of diversify your product portfolio? I know you spoke about the onion bars and you spoke about the natural shampoo, and one was when during COVID you said that the consumers themselves were asking for makeup. But is there anything else that prompted you to be like, okay, like now I can introduce this new product portfolio?
So, this has got a lot to do with community building. Once you build your community, they are the ones that will recommend you the product that you want to build. Because once we started making facial oils and the first product that we launched was a scrub, right? We made those rice flour scrubs with all different kind of ingredients. And we started making hair oil. And then the consumer came like, okay, I'm using your hair oil, but I'm using a commercial shampoo. Will it not take away the effect of using an organic oil versus a commercial shampoo? Or, I'm using your scrub, but what about the daily base needs, And that's when it became like, okay, let's launch a shampoo, let's launch a soap, let's do this. And it was just, Pritesh is the formulator, like my partner is the formulator. And we kept studying about it. It took us almost 2 years before we launched this. And he kept reading about how to make it, right? I mean, we are actually Google students, and a huge attribution to them for where we are. But that's how we actually created the product lines. I was the researcher. I loved researching about ingredients. And today also, if you go onto a Juicy Chemistry website, every single ingredient is backed with a research paper, because we strongly do believe that you need to marry. You cannot just in the name of natural say, kuch bhi chalega, right? I mean, if I know a coconut oil is comedogenic, it's not suitable for all skin types, but it's a cheap ingredient, I will not use it on the skin for anybody, for that matter. I will not say, okay, you know what, I formulated this for dry skin, why did you use it? No. That differentiation came from my ability, from my research background, and from the kind of in-depth study that I would do on every single ingredient, and the kind of studies that were done to understand, like rosemary essential oil, which is right now doing all these rounds of working better than minoxidil, we've been using for last 10 years, because we had been reading up on the benefits of these ingredients, their nutrient profiles, and then only creating the formulation. So I think once you build a community, I mean, to be very honest, we do have a cluttered range right now. We do need to undo quite a lot, because your top 5 or 7 products should actually bring about 70% of your revenue. The rest are your add-ons, right? So you don't need that many add-ons. So right now we are also in that process of decluttering, because now we found those 3 or 5 products that actually bring that 70% revenue. And how do you scale that? That has to be the game then. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, she had a question. I think she had a question. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
So, from what I can see, you have great potential for export as well, because this is such a big global movement. Everybody wants to go clean beauty. So, have you considered scaling up to an international audience?
So we did when we were much smaller, like about a few years back, we did have private distributors in France, in South Africa, in Australia, and so on. Now what we've done is we've gone down the Amazon route. We've listed on Amazon.com, UAE, AU, UK, and now we're trying to scale through Amazon, because I think it's the easiest way to probably, get in the new audience. Otherwise, it becomes quite difficult. We do have distributors in a few countries like Malaysia, because Malaysia, the shipping and everything is a little stressful from here. So we do have private distributors that buy the products outright and they do the retail. But export still comes up to a very minimal percentage. It is a segment that we actually want to explore more for Juicy Chemistry, because I think we'll be better valued internationally vis-a-vis to what we are in India, because the West, of course, is more advanced when it comes to understanding the beauty of organics. So definitely that's something we're working on. Yeah.
If we could give do we have one more?
Yeah.
Just to Surbi.
How complicated was it to get on Amazon in other countries, like the compliance and paperwork around that?
It is a little complicated. I think you do need to have your, you do need to get an agency involved in the process, because if it's skincare, especially if it's beauty and personal care, they do have certain labeling policies. You can't really make the kind of statements that you make in India, right? Like, I mean, I cannot say it reduces pigmentation. I cannot say it treats anything, because it's a drug claim that I'm making. So the labels and boxes and all of that changes a lot when it comes to any of these international Amazon listings, especially in the West, not Dubai so much. Dubai also, actually. Dubai has also become quite stringent about it. The only difference is, but because of EcoCert, things were a little simpler for us. So rest, everything was in the guidelines. We just had to remove the claims that we were actually making, because for that then we have to register with the drug authorities over there. So yeah. Local is required for places like Dubai, like you do have to register with Dubai municipality, but I think with USA and with Australia it's not necessary. You can just directly work through FBA and you can get your products listed. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
if we
my
could
pleasure.
give Megha a round of applause. And Megha, we have something for you, which Abba will give you. Everyone else, we will break for lunch, and please meet back here at 2:30 for our last 2 sessions. Lunch is at the big top at the end.